Welcome everybody. Come on in. We got an action-packed week here, so we won't take too much time to talk housekeeping stuff, admin stuff, intros, et cetera, et cetera. We'll give everybody a minute or so, but tons to cover, tons to cover. Every night, right? But this is the sweet spot for Peg and I. So and we both have lots to say and some pretty firm opinions around this stuff. As I think will come through in the coming minutes here. But something that's always fun for us to find out, for those of you that are self-nicknamed groupies, as you all know, we always like to know where you're at in the country. Tell us where you're from. Throw that in the chat. Let us know where you're tuning in from. It's also helpful for us to know, what is a graduating class of your high school student. I know it's mostly kind of 25s here. I'm sure we got some underclassmen, but tell us where you are. And it's pretty cool. I think maybe especially for our folks that have been around the block with us, seen us speak or seen some teammates speak. We have something brand new that we're going to be introducing to you all tonight that we're really excited about. We've been working on quite literally for years, kind of in the background, and that's going to be unveiled tonight. Yeah, so a couple brand new things, but first and foremost, we're going to get you coached up, and then we'll kind of we won't leave you in suspense, and so you're able to get some sleep tonight, right? We don't want to keep you up all night wondering what this surprise is going to be.
No, we're trying to help you sleep at night.
That's it. That's exactly right.
Guiding you through this process.
That's the idea. Great. So as usual, you guys are probably seeing in the chat, right? We're very well represented geographically all over the country, which is always fun for us to see. I'm on the East Coast, just north of Boston here. I know most folks are getting ready for game one of the Eastern Conference Finals. Go Celtics. In this neck of the woods, right? Peggy, I know we always got a team to celebrate. We always got a team in a big game. That's not my fault. Okay. And then we got Peg, of course, out there. East Coast girl from New Jersey, but been in the Seattle area for some time now. So really quickly, for those of you that are new, let's just again, we'll do brief introductions and then get into the content. My name is Matt Carpenter. I'm the founder of College Aid Pro. I've been doing this. The class of 2025 is a special year for me in the sense that it's the 20th. It will be the 20th class that I've ushered through this process, shepherded through this process, whatever word you want to say, which is just wild to say, right? And I feel really fortunate to be in this position, right? It's something that I just care deeply about, is trying to help students and families navigate this really overwhelming, kind of scary, sometimes frustrating process. Do it the right way, right? Because it's hard. It's hard. And we're going to kind of talk about what you guys are up against in some ways. And our whole deal is to empower you, educate you, so you feel confident and are just doing this the right way for you and your family. That's kind of our deal. Very grateful to have Peggy, the fairy godmother of financial aid, with us. Just who I consider to be one of the top experts of this space, who's been doing it for a very, very long time, worked with all sorts of families, and has lived it and breathed it. She's been where you guys are right now. So Peggy, I'll let you say hi, and then we can I'm sure I forgot some housekeeping stuff.
I'll kick in on that and then just say hi here. So housekeeping wise, we like questions. We most likely won't get to all of them, but we'll do our best. Put them in the Q&A. We'll remind you. I know we asked you to put that stuff in the chat, but when you have questions, put them in the Q&A. You can mark them as anonymous if you choose to. So that's a reason. And that's where Matt and I are going to look when we're not chatting. We will be looking in the Q&A and do our best to cover those. This is being recorded and you will get the recording. So, but as Matt said, we're going to show some new stuff at the end. And we've got a nice little giveaway for all of you. So hang on till the end of the hour. If you can, please do. As Matt said, I'm Peg Keogh, have a background in the financial industry, but I have twins. They are done with college. It's been a little while, but I have been exactly where you sit, times two. And I would be shocked if we don't have somebody who has twins in here. Pretty common that we'll have twins on almost all of our webinars now. So, but I'm here to tell you, yep, there we go, triplets.
Triplets.
David, I gotta hand it to you. To me, triplets, you don't have enough hands at that point. That's super hard. So kudos to you on that. But even if you have triplets, you will get through it. But it's even more important that you don't go this alone, right? And that's going to be one of our big messages tonight, is that there's support out there. You got to learn what you don't know, or else you're going to fall victim to basically paying too much for college. Paying too much for college, and it's academic, personal, and financial fit. So we just can't stress enough to look at that financial fit. And so kudos for being on all of our boot camp sessions, getting really schooled up on this so that you can go through this informed, and you just have a huge leg up. So see, the twins are just rolling in here, Matt.
There you go. You called it. Yeah. All right.
All
Beautiful.
right. All right, let's get this show on the road. All right. So, as Matt said, he's one of the founders at College Aid Pro. If you're new to us, this truly is our mission and the Student Debt Crisis, by empowering you to shop smarter for college. And educating you is a big part of that. And then we can also support you one-on-one along the way. But that you really are shopping for college with your child. That's really what you're doing. So there we are. And I will let you take over here, Matt.
The happy couple. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. So you guys all got a reminder, I think earlier today, maybe previously, but if you haven't done so already, create your free College Aid Pro accounts. Okay. Most people, the first thing that they ask us is, where do we start? This is the answer, okay? Because it's going to tell you a lot of the things we're talking about tonight, but specific for your family, right? We're going to teach you how this whole financial aid and ecosystem works tonight, but you need to know more than that. You need to know, how does it work for your family? Confirm or deny whether or not you're eligible for financial aid, how much at which colleges. And then as we're talking, you can follow along again to see how this is going to play out for you guys. If you haven't done it already, take the 2 minutes and do it right now. And I put that link in the chat there for those of you that haven't created your account, which I saw that a ton of you have, which is great. So before we kind of get into the nitty gritty, I want to set the stage, okay? Because I think it's important to understand really why college is so expensive. Why is it so expensive? And what can you do not to be kind of on the receiving end of that, right? Or be where so many folks end up. And it's insane. Some of you can probably relate to this. The biggest financial concern for 73% of parents and students is paying for college. And these are some of the reasons why, right? Can we afford it? What if we're divorced or separated? I'm a business owner. Are we going to get financial aid, right? But this is, of all those other financial concerns that you have, retirement, buying and affording a home, and taxes, you have an infrastructure, right? You have a CPA, or you use TurboTax, right? You go to buy or sell a home, you have Zillow, you have a realtor. You are on your own in navigating this college process, but we're going to help you fix that. Go ahead to the next slide, Peggy. Now, I'm going to share with you a couple statistics that really resonate with me and, quite frankly, make me a little angry, but I channel that anger and use it as motivation, right? And I want to do the same for you, because in this process, right, we know that there's 43 million people, okay, on the wrong side of this equation, right? 43 million people that are kind of losing this college game, so to speak. So some entities must be winning, and they are. And there's really three, and I want to talk about them quickly. Obviously, the colleges, right? NYU is going to be $99,000 a year next year. So we're talking about basically $100,000 a year for 1 year for one kid to go to college now. But something that you might not know, that again doesn't sit too well with me, is that these colleges are marketing machines. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm going to vilify some of these entities right now, but to be clear, we do this because we want people to go to college. We still believe college is the next best step for most young adults, right? I freaking love college, okay? But I don't like some of the business practices. And these colleges, on average, the average CMO, okay, Chief Marketing Officer, makes $375,000 a year and has a staff between 9 and 24. You have outliers like Purdue University. It has 250 full-time employees in marketing and communications. Okay, and oftentimes consumers, we think they are picking colleges, they are picking us. Okay, and we want to, again, kind of reverse that. The federal government, again, I think with good intent, trying to make college happen for as many people as possible. Good intentions don't always lead to the best results. 45% of our country's assets are in parent and student loans. So the federal government, are the biggest asset class the federal government has is in parent and student college loans. With that, you can make an argument now that we're in a situation where the government needs college to be expensive. Okay. Now, obviously, with this huge pile of money, Wall Street is not going to miss out on that. If you are fortunate enough to have enough money to save for college, you open up a 529. If you need to borrow for college, you get a private student loan from Wall Street. Either way, they're benefiting to the tune of over $500 billion with the T. So these are kind of the three entities that are winning at the expense of us. And if you want to go to the next slide, Peggy, their real superpower that these three entities have, and again, in a way that they don't have with taxes, investments, et cetera, is kind of creating and cultivating this narrative. And again, whether it is intentional or not, doesn't really matter to me, of encouraging families to go on this on their own. And people don't talk about it, right? I'm sure a lot of you can relate. How did those guys figure it out? How did our neighbors, our families figure it out? Most of them didn't. And it's kind of a something that they don't talk about, right? Or don't want to admit, and are kind of thinking we're the only ones that didn't figure it out, apparently. So if there's one thing you learned this week, we want it to be that you do not do what these guys kind of want you to do in some ways, or at least benefit from. Don't go at this alone. We do not care if you only use our free resources. We do not care if you use our competition. Okay. I mean that in my guts, but do not go out this alone. That's why I'm really grateful that you're here tonight, but stay engaged. And that's a theme we're going to continue to kind of beat you over the head with, because we don't want to just be the ones that are continuing down this path and you know, again, at our expense and at the benefit kind of these other three entities that are pretty stinking sophisticated. So, Peggy, I'll get off my soapbox for the moment before I get back on there, and I'll let you.
Okay, and I'll jump on there for some comments in a minute. So, okay, so let's talk about. I mean, I used to say, I affectionately call it the crazy world of financial aid, because it is a big nutty. It's counterintuitive, right? So let's talk about it. One of the biggest takeaways tonight, and this is counterintuitive, is that financial aid, it's a discount, and all of these colleges are on sale. So Matt just said NYU is going to hit $99,000 full sticker price. You think, oh, geez, that's super expensive. Most people can't even dream of affording that. Why do they discount? They're raising their prices, and they're discounting. They are. That's what colleges are doing. I'm not saying NYU is great for doing that, but colleges in general are. And they do it in not one of three ways. There's three different ways they do it, because I was just looking at a family that I helped, and they had all three of these on the award from the student. So it's not necessarily one of them. So the first bucket over here on the left is need-based grants. So this is free money. This is money from either the state, the institution, which is the college, endowment money, or the federal government, and it's based on having financial need. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. The second bucket is merit-based scholarships. So this is the flip side. It's free money most of the time from the colleges, and it's based on typically grades and test scores, but it's your student. It's your student, and it's the college discounting, the Office of Admissions discounting. Many times they don't even know your ability to pay, and they don't care. They're doing this discounting. And the last bucket is self-help. And so that's where we put loans and work study. Work study is a federal program. Your child actually gets a job and gets a W-2 and a paycheck, right? And then you decide as a family where that money goes. And obviously loans are loans. They need to be paid back. It doesn't mean that loans are bad, just responsible debt is what's important. So let me show you an actual example of a student. This will show you how these discounts work in action. So This was a student that got 2 awards from 2 different schools that she got into. One's a public state university and a private university. So you look at that sticker price, that cost of attendance that we're going to talk about in a minute. So about 34.5 versus, yeah, we're pushing 77,000 for the private school, right? This family has a student aid index of about 30,000. Don't worry if you don't know what that is. We're going to talk about it in a minute. It's an index for how much they can afford. So it's very easy to look at, you know, you don't have to be an Einstein to look at this and say, geez, multiplying that times 4, that's completely out of our price range. There's no way. This is a lot, but we're not even going to look at this school. Say that to your child. But I want to show you what happened to this child at the end of the day for the finances. If we look at the cost of attendance minus that free money, minus work study, no loans are included, the state university was the same because all the student got were loans. But the private university, look at that difference. It went down to $40,000. So now we're looking at a less than $6,000 delta. That's a really different conversation. And so this is what you have to understand. There's nobody that's going to tell you exactly what your package is, but you've got to understand as you're helping your child build a college list and shop for college, if you will, how do these schools fit? Like Matt said earlier, you know, understanding their business plans. These colleges, most of them are nonprofits, but don't kid yourself, they're big businesses. And when they give your child a package, it's not random. There's a lot of strategy behind it. They have consultants. They have departments called enrollment management that do nothing but look at what kind of packages they can put together to entice families and students, but also parents with the price tag to come to their university. It's really a big business. And so you are really behind the 8 ball if you just what I call drift through this. You don't understand it. You find some great academic and personal fit schools for your child. You visit, you love them, you apply, and then you have this giant gulp when you get these awards and you say, I have no idea how to pay for this. They said a lot of people got at least 30,000 when we went on the tour. That might be true, but it might not be true for your family. So just want to show you that this is a bit counterintuitive, but it is not rare. It happens all the time. And this is the information you're going to want to understand. So let's first talk about need-based aid, because remember we had those 3 buckets there. So the far left bucket, pretty simple equation that the colleges use. They take their cost of attendance, which is tuition and fees, room and board, books, travel, and personal expenses, been going up every year for decades. And then they subtract from it something called the Student Aid Index, SAI. It's a new term for the kids that are about to start college this fall. It is calculated off the financial aid forms. So they take the cost of attendance, they subtract the SAI, which is what the colleges think you can afford for a year of school, and they get your need. So if a school costs $80,000 and you have an SAI of 40, you have 40,000 of need. That doesn't mean that you look at that and say, oh, well, I got enough for my 529 for that, I'm good. Because you might, that school, most schools are not going to swoop in and say, hey, here's your 40,000 in grants. They're going to do different things. And again, that's that level of detail you want to understand. So let's do a different example. 80,000 cost of attendance. Your SAI is 100,000. Matt and I have worked with hundreds and hundreds of families through the years that have high SAIs, but they can't afford 99,000 a year, or honestly, they don't want to pay that because they don't think it's worth it, which I would tend to agree with them. So what do? You don't have any needs. So then you're going to have to look into a different area, but you got to know this stuff ahead of time. That's the key. You don't want to be caught off guard. So let's talk about the need base. Let's look at how this SAI is calculated. There's 2 main parts of the SAI. There's assets, parent and student, and income, parent and student. So the student part usually doesn't drive it much because kids aren't sitting, unless they're sitting on a trust fund, They don't have a lot of assets and they don't have tons of income, even if they work during the school year and have a summer job. So it's really the parents that are driving this. So on the asset side, the key takeaway here is it's all your assets except for your retirement asset. So that means 401k, 403b, IRAs, that includes a Roth IRA. That's a common question. All of those accounts, if you've saved really well over the years, you are good. That is not going to be part of the equation. The rest of your assets are. So that means checking, savings, CDs, stock, bond portfolio. Real estate that's not your primary home is looked at by all schools because there's two different financial aid forms that we'll talk about in a little bit. But if you have a rental home or a vacation home, the equity in that home, meaning your market value minus your any mortgages, if you have a HELOC or a regular mortgage, that's your equity. That's considered an asset that can be tapped by all the colleges. Your primary home is looked at by certain schools, but the lion's share of them don't look at the equity. And that's one of those planning opportunities. I'm a financial planner by background. I don't think I mentioned that. So it's just ingrained in me, but that's a planning opportunity if you have a lot of real estate. You don't want to overvalue it. You want to play this game the right way, being honest, but playing the game. Okay. As far as a little bit more detail on the assets, the most common questions we get. What about my 529s? Matt and I both brought that up. That's a college savings account. If that doesn't ring a bell for you, no worries. You don't have one. It's all good. If you are a parent that owns one of those, that's an asset of yours, not your child's, even though your child is the beneficiary. That's very important because parental assets are assessed at a much lower percentage when they calculate the SAI versus the student asset. So it's a very common mistake. If other people have an account for the benefit of your child, grandparents, your buddy from college who never had kids, who's very wealthy, whoever it is, that's not part of the SAI because they're not part of your nuclear family. If you have jointly owned accounts with your child, if your name is on there and it's joint, then you can put it in your bucket. Okay. You see the third bullet here says UGMA UTMA. This is a custodial account. So this is different. This is an asset of your child. And there's reasons for that because you've gifted it to them, even if grandma's gifted it to them. But there are strategies to lower the impact that could have on your SAI. And those are things that you'd want to talk to us one-on-one because I can't just tell you do this because there's ramifications when you have UTMAs and UGMAs, there's tax ramifications. You can't make these decisions in a silo. You really got to look at all the pieces. So that's the asset piece. And assets are assessed if you want to be this exacting, literally the day you hit submit on the financial aid form. So you have time to go buy that car that you've needed to buy or whatever. If you're going to spend money, spend it, right? So you're not putting it on the financial aid form. So let's talk
Sorry,
about.
Peg, let me just break in quickly here because a couple kind of repeat questions. You're on your own to present the amount of equity in your home. So it's part art, part science, right? That's something we're advising folks with on a daily basis. Obviously, we want to have the lowest defendable amount without kind of jumping off the page, right? And because again, we can put whatever we want, but if it jumps off the page to a financial aid counselor, they're just going to go fact check it on Zillow, Redfin, whatever, and use the highest value. So we want to just kind of thread that needle between, okay, what's an advantageous number that we can reasonably defend without being kind of ridiculous, right? But again, you are on your own in terms of what value and in terms of what schools look at home equity, right? It depends on the college. That's why we're always telling people, let our algorithm do the work for you because that's all baked into the back end where we know which schools look at home equity, which don't, and to what extent. And we'll look at some specific examples in just a minute here, just a few minutes here.
Yeah, and that's another massive planning opportunity. If you have a lot of home equity, you're going to want to understand that because Matt's going to show you in a few minutes how there can be a massive difference on what you're expected to pay at a given college. Okay, so now let's talk about the other side of the equation here with the SAI, and that's the income. This is by far the biggest driver, parental income. And it's not the opposite, but it's very different from assets in that they're assessed. It's called prior year, meaning it's a 2-year look back. So all you class of 2025s, it's last year. We have some 26s on here. You're in that tax year right now that you're going to be reporting on down the road. It's mostly based off of adjusted gross income. There's a few other add-ins, but that's the main driver here. So if you are a class of 2026 parent, you want to think about that. Don't create income that you don't have to. If you get a raise, you get a promotion, of course, that's wonderful. But some people do things and then later are like, oh, I wish I didn't do that. Now I got to appeal to the colleges and talk around it. So just keep that in mind. This is the biggest driver, but kids on the other side, it is a big driver for kids. But as I said earlier, for this coming year, they can make over $9,400 and it's a wash. So for most kids on the FAFSA, which is the main form that most colleges only require, and we'll touch on that in a few minutes, student income is not a huge driver. So if you're listening to me or you've set up your account and you're like, oh, Peg just talked about SAIs, ours is high. There's no schools that cost whatever, $105,000. What are we going to do? Because we can't afford 99,000, we can't afford 70. How are we going to get those discounts? That's that other bucket that I talked about earlier. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt to chat about that.
Yeah, so look, just by law of large numbers here, there's going to be a percentage of you that are on here that there's no magic wand that we can wave or anybody can wave that's going to make you eligible for traditional need-based financial aid, right? At least the free money. Everybody is entitled to some financial aid so long as you submit the FAFSA. We'll talk about that over the course of this week. But again, some of you are not going to get that free money. So we got to go figure out how are we going to get discounts regardless of our financial situation. And you can go to the next slide here, Peggy, because I'm going to reemphasize some of these points. Now, one of the great things about merit-based financial aid is that's there for all 4 years. We can really set our watch to that anytime we get a scholarship. Merit aid, scholarship, interchangeable words here, right? Whereas financial aid, we have to reapply for this every single year. And as our income fluctuates, if it does, our aid package is going to fluctuate with that, right? In an inverse relationship, for better or for worse. Just a reminder, guys, I'm going to say it nicely before Peggy has at you here, right? Any questions that you have, put them in the Q&A. That's where we're monitoring, not in the chat. And if you have a personal question, you can do that anonymously, right? You don't have to put your name behind anything. So just a reminder, that's where we're focused. And again, we won't be able to get to every question, but we are giving it hell. We're chipping away at a decent pace here. So how do we go get these? How do we find which colleges are going to give us scholarships and how much, and that are also going to be good fits for our kid? We're going to show you how we do that, how we leverage technology to do that. But a couple other talking points before we get in there and actually go through some case studies, right? Some of these folks that may have resonated with what I just said, that said, yeah, we know we're one of those families that's not getting need-based aid. Now, again, don't just assume, go confirm it, okay? But if you do confirm that your SAIs are too high to get need-based aid, some colleges still require the FAFSA and or CSS profile to even be eligible for scholarships. So we flagged that because a lot of folks just assume, well, if we're not getting financial aid, we're not going to do the financial aid applications, not knowing that they left money on the table just by not going through that formality, right? NYU is always a great example for me. You heard me mention at the top, $99,000 a year starting next year, but they do give merit-based scholarships, right? But you have to complete the FAFSA and the CSS profile if you want to even be considered for those, okay? Something else that I don't think these last 2 points, these last 2 bullets I'm going to hit on quickly here is the fact that not every college offers scholarships. And this is becoming a more popular trend, I guess, where there's about 100 colleges in the country. Scholarships don't exist there. Okay, there's not one Ivy League college that offers scholarships. It doesn't matter how gifted the student is in terms of their intelligence or their athleticism, or they might be an amazing musician, artist, etc. scholarships don't exist at the Ivy League schools, and it's not just the Ivies, right? MIT in my backyard, no scholarships, right? You know, in schools of like this, okay? So especially if we have this really talented kid and we're thinking about, okay, applying to these really competitive schools, we should know which ones don't offer scholarships ahead of time, especially if we're one of these, what we call internally bubble families, right? Which are families that we're not getting financial aid or not much financial aid, but we're also not in a position to start cutting checks for 100 grand a year, you know, times 4 years, times 3 kids, or whatever it might be. So Peggy, if I could, I'm gonna share my screen for a second.
Sure. And when you get in there, there was a question about adding schools, somebody who's in there, so you can just quickly show them how to do that.
Yeah, sure. So couple things here, guys. Again, if you haven't created your account, do it. Create your free account now. And again, I think we got some cool new stuff to show you tonight, right? But a few things just to give you the quick tour. The first thing that you'll see, this is the home dashboard of MyCap, right? Is you see your SAIs. They're staring you in the face. This is the result of submitting the FAFSA, right? You're going to see this figure right here, the federal SAI. And this institutional SAI, okay, is usually a range. Now, I saw somebody say that, hey, all the net price calculators that I did on these college websites asked me for home equity. That tells me that they're a school that uses the institutional methodology, or the IM, okay, which has some different variables, a decent clip of different variables, but the big ones are, number one, a lot of these schools consider home equity, but to varying degrees. So that's why there can be a range, and there is with this particular family. Also, if you're a split household family, so divorce separated family, these schools look at both households in most cases and consider both households, income and assets, etc. These schools, they're only going to look at one household, just the family that submits the FAFSA. I'm telling you more than you need to know. Just answer the questions that as you're onboarded, put the schools in that you want to research, and then we'll tell you what they're actually going to cost your family. But there's a couple other things that I want to show you here. And actually, on the net price calculator note, you saw me put this note. Be very careful with net price calculators. Me and Peg have done some presentations specifically on college's net price calculators, really with the help of we were just the talking head in front of the room, as we typically are here. But we had our data team do a massive research on net price calculators. And again, the headline is just be careful, because a large percentage of them are wildly misleading. It's kind of the wild, wild west out there. But if you're curious to search for a school, let's put it in the chat for me right now. I know I want your questions in the Q&A. Break that rule for a second. In the chat, put in some particular colleges you guys are talking about at home, right? What's the top choice? What's your alma mater? Let's kind of look at how generous they are with scholarships or aid. Or, okay, I saw American. Those guys, those tricksters. Good.
Yeah, they've been a bit of stinkers this
Good
year.
school, but man, they drive a tough bargain here. So for this family, right, you know, $80,000 a year-ish, we're going to be paying $34,000 based on our family's SAI, okay? If I click on any college, it's going to show me a couple things. Number one, why am I getting a discount? Or I'm going to get 43,000 need-based grants, again, based on my SAI. But something else you'll notice, for every college in the country, we have every scholarship that they offer, the qualifications for each, and we're really good at projecting, well, what's your kid going to get? And kind of for each part of the platform, if you want to drill down further, you can, right? So if you want some more answers, you know, you're an engineer, right? You got that engineer brain. Well, why? Right? Well, here's their admission statistics, right? This is the average GPA, the average test scores, and you can get an idea of where your kid stacks up there. Here's the average percentage of need-based financial aid that they meet, the average scholarships, et cetera, right? So again, for kind of every part of the platform, there's more context in terms of the why. Let me just pick out another school that I think might be a good example here. Appreciate everybody. Baylor will be a good one. Okay, so Baylor down there, and everything's bigger in Texas, right? Okay, so again, another really expensive school. We're getting less of a discount there. Okay, so again, if we can click on it, we can see the why. We're going to get some merit-based scholarships here. We're going to get need-based financial aid. It's very rare that we'll get both. We'll get the higher of the two numbers. That's going to bring us down to our net cost. Yeah, you know, there's more complexities here, but simply put, if you want to get the biggest, if you want to get let me simplify it. Baylor is less generous with need-based financial aid traditionally than American is, right? And that's what we're seeing here. Okay. Along those lines, if we want to look for how generous or not a college is, whether it's scholarships or need-based financial aid, this is the part of the platform that we want you guys to be focused on. Okay. And so I can put in here, hey, I want a school that's close to my home. I know my kid wants to be pretty close to home. I'll put maybe 500 miles. At the moment, they're probably more comfortable in a smaller school, and maybe they want to major in bio. I can put that in there, and then I can sort by show me schools that check those boxes, but rank them by who's going to give me the most in merit-based scholarships, right? And maybe Wheaton College wasn't on our list initially, but if they're going to give me 40 grand, regardless of my income, I might take a closer look or go toward the school. Or Hobart and William Smith, really nice little private colleges in upstate New York. If they're going to give me 38,000, I might take a look. If I have a lower SAI, I am eligible for financial aid. I can sort just based on that. And instantly it's going to tell me, okay, here's the schools that are great from an admissions perspective, but also they're really generous when it comes to need-based financial aid, right? And of course, we see MIT at the top of the list. It's impossible to get into MIT, but here's some other schools that are maybe more, or sorry, that are generous with need-based financial aid, but are a little bit more attainable from an admissions standpoint. So we could spend a lot of time in here. We will spend more time in here this week. But I wanted to kind of show you again, specifically for navigating, how do we find out who's going to give us merit-based scholarships and what are these schools actually going to cost us? That's how you want to leverage a platform.
All right, let me reshare here. Lots of good questions.
I'll get back in there, Peggy.
Okay, so now people were saying, what's the FAFSA? What does IM mean? So let's dig in on these financial aid forms and for you class of 2025 parents, like what's coming up the pike here? So applying for financial aid, that's what it's not the fun part, but it's important to understand it and to have it down pat and not get behind the 8 ball. So there's 2 forms. Almost every school in the country requires the FAFSA. It stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. You might not have been paying attention because your child's not a senior in high school this year, but it was all over the media. There was what they called simpler FAFSA that they came out with. I won't bore you with all of the trials and tribulations, but it was a bit of a mess, to be charitable. That's a charitable characterization. So fingers crossed, I just answered a parent. Everything will go smooth sailing for class of 2025 this fall. But you need to submit the FAFSA to be eligible for need-based aid. And Matt and I tell every family, submit the FAFSA, submit these forms, because some schools want it on file to give out merit aid. And you might be thinking, rightly so, why would they do that? Because merit aid is not a need-based form of aid. You're absolutely right, but it is what it is. So don't overthink it, just get the FAFSA in, and in most cases, the CSS profile. Just like everything in this process, your kids should be used to deadlines for school projects. Deadlines really, really matter in financial aid. If you are eligible for need-based aid and you miss a deadline, that could mean tens of thousands of dollars less of aid. So you want to stay on top of these deadlines with your child. All right, so let's talk about the FAFSA. How does it work? As I was seeing these questions. So if you have a rising senior, it should go live October 1st, 2024, this coming October. That's how it's, well, not always worked. It used to be January 1, but quite a few years it's been October 1. This past year was an anomaly, hopefully, because of all the revamping. So fingers crossed it goes live October 1. You cannot do it before then. As I already talked about, you're going to be doing your prior year. So it's the 2023 tax year. You should have those taxes done. You should be good to go. If you're somebody that extends up to October 15th and you need to get that in before that, you want to work with your CPA or get it done yourself. Once your kids are in college, it's advantageous to get your tax returns done as quickly as possible into the new year when you can, especially if you're going to be appealing. So it's all going to be 2025. With the FAFSA, if you're a divorced or separated family, only one parent submits it with the student. And that's called the custodial parent. And that's defined as the parent that provides the most financial support on a year look back. So if you're going to submit that form on November 1, 2024, it's a year look back. Who spent the most money on your child? So that is another planning opportunity. Some families, it's hands down, he or the mom or dad just there's no planning, right? But a lot of families there is. It's like we're 50-50, or I haven't spent as much, but you know that now today in May you can start strategizing around this. This is something we spend a lot of time helping families with, to make sure they're doing it right. Put your best foot forward for the parent that will have the least amount of income, least amount of assets. So your SAI goes down, you get more money from the colleges and maybe the state and the federal government. The one thing you can do now, if you have a rising senior, is get what's called a Federal Student Aid ID, FSAID. The student is definitely going to need it, and at least one of the parents is going to need it. That there's a term called contributor. If you're married filing jointly, one parent needs to get it. If you're divorced, the custodial parent needs to get it. There are a few circumstances where both parents are going to need it. But for now, whichever parent, if you're married, owns this, like in my house, I own all the financial stuff. So I would be getting the FSA ID, and each one of my kids would. So you know how that works in your family. You can go ahead and do that now. Get it off your list, save that information, because you're going to need it every time you log into the studentaid.gov account every year to submit the FAFSA, because you're going to have to do this every year for your child while they're in college. The FAFSA had some changes, as I said. I just want to hit these just so you understand. The two household families, the custodial parent definition changed. Doesn't really matter to you what it was. Now you got to understand it's the parent that provides the most financial support. If you have twins, and David with your triplets, it used to be that the SAI would go down by almost 50% if you had twins, and by 2/3 for each child, right? With triplets, that is not the case anymore to give out federal money, but the colleges can absolutely take that into account. So that's another planning opportunity. Keep that in mind. Write that down and highlight it, highlight it, highlight it, because down the road, you can reach out to these FAFSA schools and say, hey, I know you didn't take that into account, but please do. And if you have several FAFSA schools, you can try and play them off each other. If you are a business owner, you're going to have to value your business no matter what size it is. Another planning opportunity, another thing to strategize and make sure you are being honest, but you're not overvaluing your business. Some businesses literally have zero resale value, and you're not lying when you say that. When you submit the FAFSA, only the child that you're doing the FAFSA for 529. If you have 3 kids and 3 529s, you're only putting the balance for the child that's about to go to college. And your 401k, 403b contributions that are pre-tax, go right out of your paycheck into the market, those are not added back as income anymore, which is huge. If 2 of you are saving $20,000 a year, if you're lucky enough to be able to afford that, that's 40,000 that's not getting added back. So those are some great changes. So now let's talk about the other financial aid form. It's called the CSS Profile. When Matt was in the software, he said IMSAI, the institutional methodology. That's the second SAI. And by the way, these colleges are still calling, a lot of them are still calling it an EFC, which is expected family contribution. That's the old term, just so you don't get confused down the road. But this is a second form that these colleges, mostly private, there's a few publics in there, are going to require you as a family to submit along with the FAFSA, not instead of the FAFSA, but with it. They have to use the FAFSA to give out federal aid, but these schools, the MITs, the Cornells, the Occidentals, all these private schools, UNC Chapel Hill, Michigan, William and Mary, UVA, those are the 4 publics that require it. They're going to calculate a second SAI, and they're going to use that to give out their endowment money. And that is where the big money comes from, that enrollment management and all this strategizing. They're doing that with their endowment money. So that's what you want to make sure. You've got to get this form in if the school requires it. They do look at your primary home equity. And Matt touched on this earlier. You want to be honest, but their strategies around getting the right market value, okay? Because they take that, they subtract your mortgages, and that's your equity. And some schools have the audacity to just throw that in the pot like a checking account. You can reach out and talk to them about that, but they will do that from the get-go. And we show that in the software when we do our projections. If you are divorced or separated, this is a completely different ballgame with the CSS profile. Both parents are going to submit a profile. The custodial parent will submit it with the student, and there's something called a non-custodial CSS profile that goes separately to College Board that does AP and SAT and PSAT. Both the forms go to them, they administer it, so it's private. You won't know each other's information, but the colleges will bring that together. So 2 incomes, 2 sets of assets versus 1. For some families, it's a higher SAI. Not all families now, because of the multiples in school not being taken into account. The CSS profile schools, not all of them, but most of them take about 30 to 40% off if you have multiples. If you have twins, for example. Business owners, you're on the table, your value's on the table. They ask revenue, expenses. They look at your corporate tax return. They look at your Schedule C if you're a sole prop. They're digging in there. They're looking at your expenses, evaluating them. There's a lot going on there that you want to understand so you can put your best foot forward. It's much longer, much more invasive than the FAFSA, but it's easy to log in. You just Google CSS Profile app, and you can't do it yet. You've got to wait until it goes live, which is on paper, it's October 1. In the past few years, it's gone live later in September. So you don't necessarily have to wait for this one. And you're going to use your child's College Board credentials, which they've taken the PSAT, SAT, they have them. So you don't have to go get a special ID. You're just going to log in under that. So that's the CSS. Important to submit both forms and to do it correctly. Okay.
Yeah, and I'll just add a couple things. It was largely based on a bunch of questions, all the same questions, good questions, kind of repeat questions. Guys, every single college is different, right? We have to look at them like they are private businesses. They have different requirements. They have different deadlines. They have different levels of generosity or lack thereof, right? We know everybody completes the FAFSA, firm recommendation, complete it, submit it. It's going to be, knock on wood, accessible less than 5 months here, right? 4 months and change in October, due as early as November 1st, right? We're less than 6 months away from deadlines, which is insane, right? And as Peg said earlier, in terms of base income year, you're already almost halfway through your base income year, even if you have a sophomore. Okay, so you're not too early to start getting kind of deeply involved with this, and that is the number one competitive advantage. The earlier you're engaged and involved, the straight line to a more successful end result. Our dear buddy of mine and Peggy's, Bill Rabbit, right, another founder of College Aid Pro, he likes to say when comparing the FAFSA to the CSS profile, you can get through the FAFSA with a glass of wine or two, right? It's going to require at least a bottle to get through the CSS profile, maybe, the hard stuff, depending on your preference. Okay. That is the one when
maybe a couple espresso martinis would be me.
Espresso martinis for Peggy. That is her formula. That girl, that'll get her out on the dance floor. But by the way, 21 only here, folks. 21
Yes,
only.
yes.
21 plus. We're talking to parents. But that is the form that I think has people, when you're listening to your friends and colleagues, and of course, if some of you have been through this yourself, that one is a beast, right? In addition to just being several hundred questions, there's nuanced questions. How much can I pay for college? And it matters how you answer that question, because you don't want to put something that's too high because you will pay more than you need to. You don't want to put something too low because some financial aid counselors take that personal, okay, and might overcorrect on the other side. So again, that's where it's one of those part art, part science types of questions that I think kind of drive people nuts and quite frankly are not fair to put onto people, in my opinion. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide, but I forgot to mention it earlier, and it's a really, really important point where you guys are at right now in your list building process. One of the most important things you can do, obviously, we are trying to find the colleges that are going to be the right fits for our kids academically, culturally, geographically, and that's what we're going to talk about really the focus of tomorrow night is. But also financially, right? Threading that needle, which is something that, again, we're starting that foundation tonight. But as a part of that, any families that we work with, we make them apply to competing colleges. You have to apply to competing schools. These are businesses, and they are businesses that compete with one another. So an example I always use in my neck of the woods, but this is just because it's so familiar to me and it happens so frequently. If I have a smart engineering family that we're working with, oftentimes some popular schools in the Northeast, RPI, Rensselaer Polytech, and WPI. It also happens to work out that some families are drawn to one school, not drawn to the other for whatever number of reasons. If a family tells me they love WPI and they hate RPI, I make them apply to RPI, knowing there's zero chance we're going to attend. I'm just going to use that offer and go back to their top choice, and I will get a better offer after that by leveraging them against one another, right? That is one way that we go back to schools and we can't use the word negotiate, even though that's exactly what we're doing, but to appeal for more money. So two things. This is something that we're going to spend a lot of time on a couple months down the road. But number one, it's a thing. Do not accept the first offer. And there's a method to the madness in terms of the best way to go back to colleges to get money, right? Something we're really good at, something we really enjoy. But right now, that starts by applying to competing colleges and making sure that we have leverage on our school list. Okay, Becky, I think I can share here. So I'm psyched, guys. I'm really excited. There's a couple of brand new things that we're really, really excited to introduce to everybody. Number one, if you go to look right now, if you go on our website, you'll see that the premium version of our software is $149, okay? And so that allows you to, and I can just kind of show quickly here, right? The free version that hopefully all of you are on right now, some of the features are ring-fenced, right? We can only put 3 colleges in there. We don't have that advanced search part of the platform. We don't have the private scholarships, right? Every private scholarship in the country. It's usually $149, which we think is an amazing deal. For just today, for just bootcamp attendees, you have to do it through this link that Peg will put into the chat. It's $24.99. So $24.99, $25. If you don't like it, that's your risk. $25. After that, it's $9.99 a month. So, like I said, my kind of main takeaway is that you can't go at this on your own. And again, I don't care if you use our competitors. I don't care if you just use our free stuff, but take advantage of this deal. It's just for tonight. It's $25. Don't overthink it. In addition to the platform, which I think is pretty freaking cool. And if you guys have been using it, and again, it is the cheat code and helping you understand which colleges are going to give you guys the best deal. Something that is brand new, we've been working on for a long time in the premium account and the premium account only is, and this is just for our members, okay, our member academy, is this member academy, okay? And let me just give you a quick tour of it. Again, this is included in the $24.99. If I put anything in here, so something we're going to learn about tomorrow night is demonstrated interest. It's a really, really important and really new part of the admissions process. We have so much resources around anything that you type in there that any number of videos can pop up and you can watch it'll go right to that part of what you want to learn about.
College, being admitted into college.
Okay, so again, I can type anything into here. So if I want to go back in here and I want to say, hey, I've never heard of the CSS Profile. Tell me about the CSS Profile, right? You're going to see 27 different videos that's all about the CSS Profile. It can be an overview, for example. So this whole thing is going to talk about it. It could just be about a particular part of the CSS Profile. Again, anything related, we're going to have some really robust features and it will bring you immediately to that part, okay? Bi-weekly, we're going to have bi-weekly office hours. So 2 of our experts every single week are going to come, every other week to talk about anything that you want to talk about. You're going to have direct access to them. And the other weeks kind of that are overlapping with the office hours, Peg and I are going to do, kind of some different member-only webinars, again, that are just for our members every other week. And again, on the weeks that we're not presenting, it's going to be live office hours with a couple of our experts. There is a private private Facebook community included in this that is moderated by our experts. So any questions that you have, you pop them in there. And again, we have our experts living there every day. And pretty cool, this cap, our cute little name here, cap GBT, right? I can put on here, again, what is need-based aid, right? For example, anything that I want to put in here, and this thing is pretty stinking smart. We have informed it's we're leveraging AI like everybody else here, but again, it's specific to everything that we are talking about here, as you can see. So this is again, I'm sure you probably already put this in the you probably already put this in the chat, Peg, but just in case, I'll put it again. So this is something that, again, and if you're a freshman, if you're a sophomore, get on here now. At a minimum, it'll level set everything for you. And if you're not getting value throughout the whole process, just leave, right? We have to prove that value to keep you guys engaged here. But this is something that we're super, super stoked about. Again, only Bootcamp families have access to this. Again, if you go on to our website, you're not going to find this. For you premium members, I know there's a lot of premium members already on here. You just have access for the rest of the year, right? So you've already kind of paid for your full year. So again, and you're going to have, you'll see in your accounts right now that the CAP Academy has been updated. We actually it went live yesterday. You probably didn't notice, but everything that I just showed is in there right now. Now, it's a little bit clunky in terms of, usually you can upgrade right through here. It'll have an upgrade button in your MyCap accounts. But again, for Bootcamp this week, we just wanted to offer it to you folks. So that's why you have to go through this separate link here, right? And it, as soon as you say join the club, it'll bring you to your checkout page. Okay. And then and again, it's right here. And then you'll automatically, your account, once you pay through this, your free account will automatically be upgraded. You'll see that you'll have access to unlimited schools, advanced search, private scholarships. Your CAP Academy will be updated. Give it a minute, but that'll happen automatically. Now, if some of you are listening and you don't have a free MyCap account yet, that's totally fine. Just go to pay right now, okay? Make sure that you pay tonight. You will get an email to say that your MyCap account has been created, reset your password, and again, that'll happen within a minute. So if you didn't create a CAP account yet, totally fine. Just go pay through that link. Your account will be created automatically. You will get an email here. Here's one other thing, and again, thank you for bearing with the clunkiness, but we just wanted to keep this deal kind of exclusive to our Bootcamp attendees. But if you are on a free account, okay, and you go to when you go to upgrade, make sure that the email that you put in here is the email that's associated with your free MyCap account, right? So make sure that it is that same email address. So again, if there's any disconnect, that's very likely going to be our answer. We'll help you make sure that you get that sorted out, but to make life easier on yourselves, make sure you take advantage of that. So a couple other
some of you are like doing some number crunching, which I totally respect. And saying, oh, it's not much cheaper. You got to understand, it's not apples to apples. Somebody said I'm totally confused. So let's go through this again, Matt. So if you were in the software for $149, you paid that to get the software. There was no academy, there was no office hours there's no special workshops, and there's more coming. That's not going to be it. We're working on it, right? But so you're getting this whole, what do we want to call it, Matt?
Well, what I would say, Peg, you can call it a membership, but if you already have a premium account, basically ignore me. The only thing that is different for you, the only thing is different for you is that we've really upped the ante with our academy here. Our don't call it a membership, okay? With everything that I just showed you here, okay? So if you're already a premium member, your membership just got better. If you're not, okay, we're doing tonight only, test the waters, let us prove it to you, upgrade for the $24.99. If you like everything, if you like everything the software does and everything that we have to complement that, you stay with us at $9.99 a month. If you don't, you're off to using whatever else that you want to use, right? And again, make sure you use something. We don't care if it's our competition. So I
Yeah, you
think,
pay the $24.99, you're good for that month, and then you'll just be auto charged the $9.99.
Mike, do you make sure, I don't want to forget, we have a financial aid checklist. Do you have that handy?
Yes,
Okay,
I
so everybody
do.
that's
Yes,
live
I
tonight,
do.
in the chat right now, I hope this is a pretty helpful document that Kathy on our team kind of curated. And she spent a lot of time because first, what I sent her, she thought it was too overwhelming. So I think she did a nice job of making it useful without being overwhelming. So in the chat, make sure you download that link, take that link. That's kind of a free financial aid checklist. Obviously, it'll talk a lot about what we talked tonight. And make sure you show up for the rest of this week, right? So tomorrow night we have Dan Bizig, 20 years of admissions and financial aid experience. Brian Ford, he's read over 60,000 admissions applications, specifically from Boston University, the UCs, and Bryant universities, and essays within that. So he's somebody that has spent a decade on that side of the fence at these really competitive schools, has been on the admissions committees saying, here's why this kid gets in and this kid doesn't, type of deal. So you're going to get that knowledge tomorrow night, really focused on the admissions side of the fence. And then on Thursday, JP Schmidt, former director at University of Southern California, USC, is going to be predominantly focused on test prep. And even if you know you're not a good test taker, you're planning on not taking the SAT or the ACT, you still want to show up for that. So if you can, be here live both of those nights. There's going to be some really cool giveaways both of those nights too. Again, this is kind of the big thing for this week, is that we just want to make sure that you have, again, in some ways it is us against them, right? I'm not saying those, the colleges, Wall Street, the federal government have bad intentions, but the system is not set up in the favor of the consumers. And that's kind of why we exist. And now we think this kind of, between the software and the additional support in the community membership, it gives you some I think really robust resources at, I hope, a price point that's really a no-brainer for people. So we're psyched about it, right? We've been sitting on this thing for a long time, so we're really, really excited to have it live. We've had a lot of people working their butts off on there. I mean, there's hundreds of hours of content. And again, you're going to have support from live experts literally every day, whether it's chat or whether you have us on the webinars or the office hours. You're in good hands, right? With again, I think the top experts and the top technology you're going to find. Stop me if you heard me say this before tonight, Peggy, but just don't do what they want you to do, which is to do this by yourself, right? We want to be the
well,
one.
or just, don't put it in a pile and say, yeah, this was great. I'll deal with this, because it is going to rear its ugly head if you're not on top of it, and it's easy to put off. It's easy to put off. And so we're trying to show up and be there to support you. Lots of free resources. And then when you need support that's more in depth, we're there as well.
Yeah, and let me just make sure that somebody said they were having trouble opening the checklist. I was able to open it. So I'm not sure if that was
If you're having problems, don't worry about it. Just write support@collegeaidpro.com. And in the morning, our support team, just say, I was on the boot camp last night and I couldn't open it up, and we'll get it to you. Don't worry about that.
Yep, support. I'm putting that support@collegeaidpro.com. I mean, lovely ladies that you'll find, well-informed ladies and mothers
Much nicer than me.
mothers of current college children, so they know
Yes.
what's going on all fronts here. Yeah, and again, too, if you want to meet with somebody one-on-one too, the most cost-effective way to do it too, right, is still enroll in the program tonight. Okay, you're going to enroll in the program, right, to upgrade to the premium account, right, and then you're going to just select talk to an expert here, right, and then from there you can book your one-on-one session. You can say,
we're not looking at it anymore, but it's
Extra
in your top right
Oh.
corner. It says talk to an expert. And then we didn't even talk about that tonight because we weren't focusing on that piece, but we have a whole team of experts that I personally was charged with building, and Matt's vetted them, I vetted them. So these are people that have been around the block, and some people that have been at USC and are at Harvard and MIT, and Denison and, people that know their stuff, that believe in what we're doing. And so they help us out and meet with families. So you'll be well taken care of.
And just to give you the visual, whoever asked the question, or there's a couple folks, once you get into your premium, instead of upgrade here, it'll say talk to an expert. And from there, you can just book your session and you can say next available or pick,
You'll put in your credit card information, just follow the prompts, and then you'll end up exactly where Matt was.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. So, I mean, look I hope come back tomorrow, right? Come back, tomorrow, come back Thursday. We got tons more to teach you. And again, part of the reason that we want to on the platform tonight and for the rest of the week is again, so you can kind of in real time as we're weaving in and out of there, you can be doing that for your family, right? Because when we talk about test scores, we're going to see, well, what if my test score at Denison goes from a 24 to a 29? You're going to be able to see, okay, well, that means my scholarship is going from 12,000 to 21,000 or whatever it happens to be. And yeah, any of these nights you can't make, we're sending the recordings and will all go out on Friday. You're going to get kind of a package on Friday with the 3 recordings and hopefully in a kind of consolidated format. But thanks for staying on extra with us tonight. Again, we're not going anywhere. I'm psyched to be back tomorrow and again on Thursday. And obviously, most importantly, go Celtics, Peggy. I don't know how else to end it.
Oh, yes, most importantly. All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.